Hi, and welcome back to the Father Filmmaker YouTube channel. My name is Shay, and today we're going to talk about my favorite subject, cameras. So grab a cup of coffee and let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about 5 different kinds of cameras and their use cases in family filmmaking. I'm going to discuss their pros and cons and give a bonus tip for each. This is meant to be a general overview video of what I see as the best options for family filmmakers in the year 2020. I'll do a more in-depth video in the future about each one of these kinds of cameras. Anything I talk about, product, service, or otherwise, will be linked down in the description below. The question that I get asked from friends and family the most is, what camera should I buy? Immediately followed with, should that be a GoPro or an action camera? And unfortunately, there isn't a perfect answer for everyone, so it kind of depends on your use cases. That's why I'd like to go over each one of these cameras, what they're really good at and where they struggle, and then I want you to make that determination on your own. Since my channel's main focus is to help families make better home movies, I'm going to focus on what I see as 2020's best options for new family filmmakers. I'll be starting with the least expensive options and building up in cost and complexity. So let's talk about the camera that you might be watching this video on, your cell phone. Recently, cell phones have made leaps and bounds in spec updates and changes, leaving the list of pros for using a cell phone pretty long. Let's get into those. To start, there's zero upfront cost. You already own it. Not to mention, sometimes the best camera you have is the one that you have with you. And I don't know about you, but I often don't go anywhere without my cell phone. I often use my cell phone today to get filler clips when I'm out on vacation with my family. So let's talk about the specs. New camera phones can shoot in 4K at 60 frames a second. They also have high frame rate modes for slow motion video. And the coolest thing of all, they can shoot in high dynamic range video, which means they do a great job of capturing the bright sky as well as other objects in shadows. The fact that they can do this and most professional level cameras still can't is mind-boggling. So you can shoot on your camera's default camera app like most people do, or you can even download aftermarket apps that unlock all the manual features of your phone. You can pick the codec that you shoot in, which is the video quality that the end video file ends up being. It also allows you to change your shutter speed, your frame rates, your ISO, and other manual features of your camera. And if you don't understand what any of these settings mean, don't worry, I'll be making videos in the future that cover these topics. Another fantastic plus of shooting on your phone is on-device editing. You can instantly edit together and tell a great story right from your device. iPhones have iMovie built right in, and Androids and iPhones can download other applications that allow you to edit, like Filmora Go, or Adobe Clips, or my personal favorite, LumaFusion. If you're interested to see how I do on-device editing, please leave a comment down below with the one that you're most interested in, and I'll make that next video soon. Another fantastic thing about shooting on newer cell phones is all the different lens options you have on the device. You can get an extremely wide shot that sets up the scene of where you are and who all is with you. And then you can also zoom in and show the details of the event that your family will want to remember or be a part of if they're not with you. Another great thing about shooting on your cell phone these days are inexpensive gimbals. Stabilizers or gimbals will really help take your footage to the next level. There are fantastic stabilizers out there that are extremely affordable. These will help your viewers stay engaged in your story. You have to understand, it's difficult for most people to watch shaky video unless what's going on is extremely interesting. So making sure you consider a good mobile phone gimbal is important. I'll link to some of my favorites down below. Unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and rainbows when shooting with a mobile device. There's some important cons that you should consider as well. One is poor low light performance. Because the image sensor on phones are so small, shooting on your phone in low light can produce some unusable footage. To make up for the low light, the phone has to increase the gain on the sensor, making it more sensitive. But unfortunately, this adds a ton of noise. That's the stuff that looks like snow on your footage. The new night shot photo modes of phones are fantastic, but they rely on leaving the shutter open for long exposures, and this isn't possible in video modes. Another downside of shooting on a mobile device is that they lack a depth of field. Depth of field is that professional looking cinematic blurry background, and most cell phones struggle to produce shots with it. It's not impossible, but you have to work to get those results, so that's something to be aware of. Another thing you'll struggle with when using your phone is battery drain. It's also less than ideal to drain the battery on your phone when you might need it for something else, especially if you're traveling and it's necessary for navigation or language translation. So having a dedicated camera for photos and videos can be really beneficial. Let's not forget the most frustrating situation, when you're using your cell phone to get a once-in-a-lifetime shot and a phone call comes through that ruins that. If you're using a dedicated device, you won't have to worry about this. This brings us to our first bonus tip. One thing I want you to be really conscious of when you're shooting with your mobile device is to not get the same regular bland footage that most parents get. Very few people will find vertical video shot from a high angle of your children to be very interesting or entertaining. Think about interesting perspectives that help tell the story of what your kids are seeing or doing. You want your audience to participate in the action and come along for the ride. So get down at eye level with your children. Show the viewers the world through their eyes. Next up, action cameras. They come in many forms, the most popular being the GoPro. I own multiple GoPro models, as well as an Osmo Action from popular drone manufacturer DJI. Starting with the pros, these cameras are versatile and rugged, with literally thousands of accessories available to help you get creative with your shots and tell an interesting story. Think of all the creative and interesting shots you could get with a camera that's this small. And they even make a Hot Wheels car that can carry it. Think of all the fun videos that you can make with your family with something like this. Action cameras can be built out with tons of accessories, so much so that a lot of storytellers choose to vlog on them, that GoPro actually makes a vlogging kit for GoPros. It has a better microphone and a flip-out screen to help you frame your selfie shots. The great thing about current action cameras is their built-in image stabilization. Between GoPro's Hypersmooth and DJI's Rocksteady, gimbals are a thing of the past. All you need to film is just the camera and you can get fantastic results. Another great thing about current action cameras are their price. For about $350, you can pick up a fully loaded GoPro or a DJI Osmo Action and start filming that day. That brings us to our cons. Let's talk about the editing workflow of GoPro footage. In the past, my computers couldn't even smoothly play back native GoPro footage until I converted it into a proxy, which is a smaller resolution file of the same video. Early on, the thought of this extra workflow made me very hesitant when going to grab my GoPro before an adventure. I have a better computer now, so it's not really an issue for me anymore, but it's something you might need to think about before you purchase one. GoPros also have a fixed infinite focus, meaning everything is in focus at all times. So if you're looking for a professional cinematic look with depth of field, you're not going to get it from a GoPro. Also making the cons list is the price, because while the cameras can be semi-affordable, when you add up all the extra accessories you're going to want and need for these devices to make them whole, the prices can get pretty high. I would never want to discourage anyone from picking up an action camera. I think they're a fantastic tool to add to your bag. Using these and an iPhone, you can create great stories and memories like I did for my first 2 or 3 years filming. So I've mentioned it a few times, but my GoPro tip is similar to my iPhone tip, and that's get creative with your shots. Throw one of these at the bottom of the pool and let your kids jump in. Get some cool shots and angles that you wouldn't normally be able to fit a camera into. That's what makes GoPros so special. You can create some fantastic memories, and your friends and family will love to see what you come up with. Next is the DJI Osmo Pocket. This is a fantastic compact camera with a built-in 3-axis gimbal that stabilizes your footage. Starting with its pros, its compact size is mind-boggling and truly pocketable. It has an impressive feature set, shooting at 4K at 60 frames a second for slow motion 4K, as well as 120 frames a second in HD video. That's about on par with this year's iPhone and Android offerings, but where it stands apart is that it's a standalone device, not monopolizing your phone, as well as the fact that it's stabilized with its 3-axis gimbal. Of these two options, what would you rather shoot on? It's pretty much a no-brainer. What sets the Osmo Pocket apart from an action camera is the fact that it has selectable focus, so you can select an object and focus on it, and you can also track that object. So you could set the Osmo Pocket up across the room, track yourself, and walk around and talk to the camera. It's not perfect, but with good lighting, and as long as you don't get an object between you and the camera, it works pretty good. An additional fantastic feature of the Osmo Pocket is that it has all the same shooting modes of an action camera. It can shoot time lapses and hyperlapses, with the added benefit that it can move its camera dynamically through a scene. It won't completely replace an action camera, these still have their place, but the Osmo Pocket for sure has its place in family filmmaking. Another fantastic thing about the Osmo Pocket is that it comes with the connections to adapt it to your iPhone or your Android device, allowing you to use those devices as a larger viewfinder, as well as a way to manipulate settings and set up cooler shots. I most often use the Osmo Pocket as a standalone device, not using my iPhone or an Android device at all, but it's nice to know that feature is there. Additionally, there are a ton of Osmo Pocket accessories. Not as many as a GoPro, but there's tons out there. And the last pro I'd like to give is its value. Currently running about $350 for all this thing can do and the quality you get out of it, I think it's a fantastic value in family filmmaking. At the end of the day, its small size makes it the game changer in my mind. That's not to say the Osmo Pocket is without its own flaws. It's not going to be your most rugged option. That's where an action camera can still come into play. By default, it's not water resistant, although there is an aftermarket housing. And also, 3-axis gimbals are known to be finicky and fragile. The viewfinder on the Osmo Pocket is tiny. I mean, extremely tiny. Unless you pair it with a phone, that's all you're getting. The Osmo Pocket has a much more narrow field of view than some of the action cameras. These are known for their wide angle view. This could be a pro for some or a con for others. For me personally, it's a con and something you should consider. It also doesn't have fantastic onboard audio, so an aftermarket audio device is recommended, like an external microphone, and this is an additional cost that you should consider. It also has a built-in battery that cannot be swapped out like most action cameras' batteries can. It can be actively charged while using it, but it might be a deal breaker for some. So unfortunately, both of my Osmo Pocket tips are aftermarket purchases, but I recommend you pick them up when you buy your device. The first one is a magnetic wide-angle filter that just clips right onto the front of the device that gives you a more wide-angle view similar to the action cameras. And the second is DJI's Wi-Fi module that you plug the Osmo into, and it allows you to remotely control your device from across the room. The next level up from phones, action cameras, and my Osmo Pocket are compact mirrorless cameras. These have really started to take off in popularity and have really gotten some impressive specs this past year. The latest offerings from Canon, Sony, and Panasonic are feature-packed, offering incredible image quality and advanced pro features like mic inputs for better quality audio, interchangeable lenses, manual focusing, in-body image stabilization, and flip-out viewfinders for you vloggers out there. Unfortunately, I've never owned any of these cameras, but from my research over the past year, the Canon M50 has been at the top of my list. But Sony and Panasonic have recently released new cameras in this segment that seem fantastic. One of the most interesting new releases is Sony's ZV-1. If I can get a review unit, I'll make sure to do a full breakdown of it. But this new camera from Sony was built with the online media creator at the center of all that it does. If you're just getting started down this path and you don't want to break the bank, I truly think this might be one of your better options. Some of the pros of this type of camera are their small form factor and compact size. These are quite a bit larger than the Osmo, but are still pocketable in most cases. They offer even more quality and options, but aren't too huge. They also don't draw the unwanted attention of their larger DSLR brethren. Most have a flip-out viewfinder, and this comes in super handy when you want to flip out the screen to see yourself when you're talking to the camera. It also makes it so you can shoot at low and high angles, but still see your shots and frame them appropriately. An additional benefit to owning one of these kind of cameras, even if you're not interested in making videos right away, is their fantastic standalone photo devices, and it takes much better quality photos than most phones can take. Since a lot of these cameras have fantastic built-in lenses, or even better, interchangeable lenses, they can get you much more professional cinematic looking shots, especially when you pair them with a low aperture or fast lens. I'll get more into depth about that and how it works in a future video. And rounding out our list of pros is the price. These can get you the look of a much more expensive camera, but at a fraction of the price, running anywhere between $500 to $1,000. And that brings us to our cons. The first con is also on the pros list, and that's the small form factor. A lot of users hate the small form factor of these compact mirrorless cameras, finding them hard to grip and hold, and also hard to manipulate the small or non-existent buttons on the device. Another con of these cameras are all the add-ons you'll need. Anytime you step up the level of your camera, you're going to need a lot more gear to go with it to get the shots that you want. You'll likely want to add a professional microphone to the camera for better quality audio, ND filters to get better depth of field on sunny days, a tripod or a camera grip like a GorillaPod, a gimbal for better stabilization. The list goes on and on. You'll find that anytime you step up the quality of your camera, the extra gear becomes more necessary and more costly. For my compact mirrorless tip, I'd recommend you to do a ton of research once you've selected the camera that you want to purchase. The menus can be extensive and complicated, with tons of extra settings to manipulate and change to get the shots that you want. So that you don't get frustrated, watch as many videos as you can before pulling the trigger on a certain camera. It'll pay off when you know a little bit more about the menus and feature set of your new equipment. Dog break. I think the doggies are done. Let me continue. So the last camera I'd like to talk about today are digital SLRs or mirrorless cameras. These are what I see as the best cameras for family photography and video these days. They can take fantastic photos and have great advanced video features without breaking the bank and buying a professional level cinema camera. For the pros, let's start with how powerful these cameras are. With high quality built-in video codecs, they produce amazing results and it's baked into what they do. Most can record in many video sizes and frame rates, with some doing fantastic slow motion capture capabilities, similar to what action cameras can do, but with a higher quality bitrate which makes them more pleasing to watch, and also with selective focus and depth of field, which makes the footage look so much more cinematic. One of the biggest advantages to shooting on one of these cameras is the professional looking blurry backgrounds you're going to get from the depth of field that they can create. Another big upside to using this type of camera are all the professional assistance tools built into the camera. You can have audio level monitoring, waveforms, focus assist, all built in. These are the tools that the pros use to nail the shot every time. It still takes practice to get these aspects of video right, but without these tools, it's almost impossible. The form factor of these cameras is great. The grip can form to your hand, with many customizable buttons, making settings easy to access and change with the simple push of a button or the flip of a switch. These cameras offer interchangeable lenses. Interchangeable lenses make these cameras endlessly versatile. You can rent a telephoto lens for an upcoming sports game or dance recital and get close-up telephoto shots that you would not be able to get with any of these other kinds of cameras. Or switch to a fast aperture lens to shoot in low light conditions. Or use a macro lens to get shots of your kids' Lego builds in stunning detail. And speaking of low light, some of these cameras have amazing low light capabilities. Some Sony cameras can shoot in almost pitch black and get usable shots that don't look like night vision goggles. And I don't think it needs to be said, but these cameras can switch between photo and video seamlessly, producing fantastic professional results in either realm. For some additional background, I started shooting on Panasonic's Micro Four Third line, the GH series, back in 2014. These cameras are incredibly powerful, amazing devices with super pro level video features. Unfortunately, their Achilles heel is their lack of a good autofocusing system. When filming my fast moving kids, it was difficult to quickly find focus and I often missed more shots than I got. So for 2020, I've upgraded to Canon's full frame mirrorless line. I'm using the Canon EOS R. This is a fantastic camera, but it still lacks a lot of the professional video features that I miss from my Panasonic cameras. But hopefully, this year they're supposed to release the EOS R5, and that should have a lot of the things that I'm missing. Just like all the previous cameras, the mirrorless cameras and DSLR cameras come with their own set of flaws. So here's my list of cons. They're a lot bigger than any of the other cameras I talked about today, and that comes with its own set of drawbacks. The biggest being the negative attention that they can draw depending on how and where you're using them. And my last con is the cost. Not only is the body of the camera expensive, but additional lenses and support equipment can really drive the price up. So those are my thoughts on what I consider to be the best camera options for parents looking to get into family filmmaking. If you have any questions, please leave them below in the comment section. I'm here and I want to help. If you found this entertaining or interesting, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. Now go out there and make great memories with your family.